just to, hold it and be like, yeah, this was in Star Wars and Harrison Ford held it, right? Like, it's wild. Like, it's wild to hear it. Hey guys, Cameron here from PSA, and boy do I got something special for you guys. We are starting a new series here on YouTube that's called Opening Up the Archives. We're going to be sitting down with the man himself, Jamin McCallum, the CEO and founder of Palmetto State Armory and JJE, and we're going to go into a behind-the-scenes look of what we're going to be having at our museum that is going to be opening up at our Myrtle Beach store location. So Jamin, tell me why it is so important for you to show this culture and this history of the museum at Myrtle Beach.
When I was a kid growing up, one of the things I remember, well, first of all, I really liked guns, which I just thought it was cool. I had this older brother who got me into guns. And I remember very vividly the media trying to demonize what I perceived as freedom, right? The ability to own a gun is one of the basic elements of freedom, to be able to say what you want, be able to defend yourself. I remember the media just demonizing firearms ownership, and the whole message was, well, if you like guns, well, first of all, guns are bad, and if you like them, you're bad too. And so what's been great over my childhood, from childhood into now I'm 47 years old, is that perception has totally been flipped on its head. And it's really been amazing to see that the media is, no matter how hard they try to demonize firearms and firearms ownership, it's gotten more and more popular. And so one of the things I wanted to do with the museum was kind of memorialize that, because remember in the 90s and when they were really trying to push assault weapons bans, they would just like, well, there was no killing in America until assault weapons came around. And they were acting like it was some sort of new thing that we had guns. And one of the things that's interesting, if you look at the history of America, it can be tracked through firearms ownership. And so what I wanted to do is document how freedom and firearms ownership has really woven the American story from the Revolutionary War all the way up through the different Civil War, World War I, World War II, and just into pop culture as we came back from World War II, and the movie industry took off and the different movies that were made, and how that freedom was woven into the movies, the history of the people at the time. And I just thought if I could document that and just show how freedom has really made us a better country, it's a great pushback and it's a great celebration of the American people.
No, absolutely. And obviously, as a company, Palmetto State Armory has been acquiring some of these pieces for how many years now? I mean,
since probably the first year or two in. It's been one of those things. It started out as like, you're a kid and you hear about this gun and like it comes up for sale, and like, when you're a private in the Army, you have like no money, right? Yeah. And then like for the first time in my life, I was like, well, I have a little bit extra money now, and we bought a few pieces, and I thought, wow, this is great. It's really like a piece of American history. I would hate for it to just sit in my office or at home. And so and then we got the vision to celebrate the American history, and we have several hundred pieces that we put together. We really want to put it on display. We're putting it in Myrtle Beach. We have one of our nicest stores, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the nicest gun stores in America in the Myrtle Beach area, and everything there is touristy. And I thought, what a perfect place to have this celebration of American freedom right in the heart of Myrtle Beach.
Absolutely.
We have not gotten it open yet.
We
are a little busy most of the time.
Yeah, you got to figure that out pretty soon.
But we do. We pretty much have the collection locked in, and we wanted to do a couple of videos like we had discussed earlier on how do we let people see them before the museum opens.
Absolutely. So the first episode of this is going to be a pop culture episode about Star Wars. So Jamin, talk to me about your love of Star Wars and how you got into what we're about to see.
Okay. So my history with Star Wars. So I was born in 1977 when the first movie came out. I grew up in a very religious household, right? And so we had like a TV, but we weren't really allowed to watch movies or anything. So I didn't see the original movies. I was like a senior in high school, and I stayed at someone's house, and like they had a Star Wars marathon running. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen, right?
It's like a culture shock.
It's just like, and since then, I've been really hooked on Star Wars, but also growing up as a gun nut, you would see like a Stormtrooper running around, like, that's not a laser gun, that's a Sterling, right? Or you look at Han Solo and his blaster, like, that's not a laser gun. That's a Mauser broom handle.
Yeah,
right?
It came from inspiration from something.
And so, and you could see, in effect, some of the ways that the props were pieced together. You see all other pieces of other guns in there. So when you think of like, I think the Star Wars franchise is one of the most iconic American films that's out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, like for generations, people have followed it, and And so, we talk about the museum, we want to document how freedom has impacted our culture and is woven through our culture. So when some of these Star Wars guns became available, we wanted to have a section of the museum. Like, think about if just it talks about firearms freedom, like to me that's exciting, and I'm there for days, right?
Yeah.
But to your average person visiting Myrtle Beach, it might not be that interesting.
Family members coming down tours.
Right.
You
Guy's got his kids, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, Dad's going to look at guns again." Right? So I just thought it would be cool to have a pop culture section of the museum to demonstrate how firearms ownership and freedom has influenced pop culture.
So talk to me about the gun that you're about to show us. It's the history. It was out there, the Rock Island auction. Everyone's talking about some unknown buyer bought the Han Solo blaster.
Yeah.
And here we are. You have it right next to you.
Right.
And so talk to me about like the idea of like you saw it come up and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to have this.
Sure. Well, it's just one of those things. So Julian, who's one of the other owners of JJ, he's a huge Star Wars fan, right? And so I had seen it and he had seen it, and I was looked at him and I'm like, that would be really cool for the museum, but knowing I'll probably go for a pretty penny, I assume, because Julian's the most frugal out of all, that he would be like, no. Well, he looks at me and he's like, we're getting it.
Oh,
and I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. I was like, how high do we go? He's just kind of like, well, let's just kind of roll with it, right? Which is dangerous, right?
Yes.
Especially when you get in an auction and you get excited. So, but we kind of made the choice that if we're going to do a pop culture section of the museum, we really have to see something worth coming to see.
Yeah.
And so we thought this would be a great centerpiece. And I remember being so nervous during the auction because I didn't want to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to tell Julian, well, we won, but it cost whatever.
Yeah. You didn't know how high to go.
Yeah. So, and the ironic thing is, later, I met the person on the other side who I was bidding against.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And it turned out to be a great friend of mine, but we went to the inauguration together in in January.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there talking, we're having coffee, and we're talking, and he's like, and we're talking about the auctions, and he's like, yeah, I wanted that stupid blaster. And I was like, wait, the Han Solo blaster? And he's like, yeah. He's like, it went so high. I was like, you mean the one at the auction company? He's like, yeah. He's like, I didn't win it. And I was like, yeah, you know who won that? He's like, no. I was like, it was me.
Oh, he just found out the first time that you won it right there?
We were talking. It's just like, well, I was like, I wish we would have known because we could have like kept the bidding a little
you guys
lower.
bid against each other.
And I just bought him a car or something.
Yeah. Get him something else.
It was just funny to run into the person
That's
because I remember we were actually on vacation. It was right around Labor Day that the auction was. So we were on vacation. So the family went to the swimming pool at the hotel, and I stayed back at the room, and like I just remember I'm standing at the little kitchen area, and I've got it on speakerphone, and I'm listening to the other person, and like you could hear the pause, like they were starting to slow down.
Yeah.
I was like, please do not bid again.
Yeah, no
it's
more.
It's getting a little ridiculous.
No more. Yeah, and I'm sure your wife loved that on vacation too.
Well, I came running down like, we won. She's like, what? She's like, what? But I didn't tell her how much we had to pay. She's like, okay, great. Can you accompany us on vacation again?
Yeah. Are you allowed to hang out?
So I was focused for hours on that.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about what the Han Solo blaster has as like inspiration, because like to your point, right? Like these are all guns like that were coming from something else. So talk to me a little bit about like significant parts on here that were from other guns.
Sure. So the blaster itself is a Mauser broom handle.
Okay.
And it's kind of hard to see. You can see a little bit better on this side, which is a very historic gun. It's very very unique look to it. But what makes it interesting is this muzzle device is actually a muzzle device from a German MG34. And it has bolted onto the side a German scope. And you think like, it's a laser gun, why would it need a scope? I don't know, but it just looks really cool. And it makes it look so futuristic, right? And so you're in the prop. So like this didn't create itself. This is somebody who's, he's with George Lucas, and like if you look at the characters, it's so well defined and so unique, right? Seems like they really went into the details. I would have loved to have been in the room, right? Like, what are we gonna use, right? So this is Bapti Prop House. They were one of the most famous ones back in the day. And so somebody goes in a room, and it's like, I would have loved to have been there for the conversation. Okay, that is a really cool, that broom handle. Okay, let's start with that. Like, okay, what do you do from there? Like,
here's our base.
Let's put a scope on it.
Yeah.
It's a laser gun. Why would you even want that, right? And then the MG, like the fact that this even fit on the barrel is crazy. But someone would have to go over to MG34 belt-fed machine gun and say, I want to take this off the front and put it on this. And then you can imagine they probably tried all kinds of combinations of different things. And then they put this together and they looked at it and like, oh, that's perfect. Right? So then Han Solo carrying it around. I mean, it really is one of the most iconic movie guns ever.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to, hold it and be like, yeah, this was in Star Wars and Harrison Ford held it, right? Like it's wild. Like it's wild to hear.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So what other Star Wars guns you going to have in the museum?
Okay. So that is a cool gun. But to me, one of the other cool guns. So when I was watching the movies and I saw them, the Stormtroopers are running around shooting laser beams. I was like, that's a Sterling machine gun, right? So this is not the Stormtrooper gun, but this is the inspiration for it. And so what's cool about this is, World War II is like most of the countries, by the time the war was halfway through and over, they were broke. So they started making very cheap tube guns. And, they had the Sten, even the Lanchester, which earlier they had, put more money on wood stocks and everything, but the Sten, even the Germans had a tube gun that almost looked like a Sten towards the end. It was a very cheap way to make machine guns, submachine guns for the war. Well, after the war, they came back and Sterling took the tube gun idea and really kind of refined it and made it a little bit nicer. They put the vents, you had a collapsible stock that folded underneath. I took a 34 round magazine. But this was a Sterling machine gun, which for Britain, this was their battle submachine gun. After World War II, went through a little bit of development. To me, it's just an iconic gun.
Absolutely.
And there's a red book that I had that I was given for my 8th birthday. It was kind of the inspiration for my firearms collection. Well, if you open that book up, this was one of the guns, like in a full page picture of it, and it described it. So I knew this gun right away. And
did you use that book to like acquire your collection?
It really,
like circle like this is next.
It's a huge inspiration for it. I still have the book, and if you look at the book, most of the book is in the collection, but this one really stood out to me. This one stood out. The Steyr AUG stood out. And I remember seeing the Stormtroopers running around, laser beams going out, and I was like, okay, well, that's a cool gun.
Anything.
Just aiming. So when I started collecting for the museum, this is one of the original Stormtrooper guns, and from the original movie. And what they did, this is a real Sterling. What they did was they took a Sterling machine gun. Now this is not a firing Sterling. There's a lot of parts on it, and this is just a very thin tube. But they took a Sterling submachine gun, and they put fins on it, right? And some like little janky scope looking thing, which almost looks like a early aim point red dot. And then they're just running around with laser beams coming out. That is one of the original Stormtrooper guns from the movie.
And this is going to be in part of the pop culture part of the museum.
Absolutely, yeah. There is the influences of freedom on pop culture, and one of the sections is for Star Wars. And these two firearms, the Han Solo blaster and the Stormtrooper blaster, will be there.
That is awesome, and you could definitely tell. Like obviously, inspiration.
It is almost 100%.
Yeah, like if you hold it like side by side, like you can absolutely tell. I mean, even the back with the sling loop on it, like everything is inspired by this.
And again, I would have loved to have been in the prop house because they probably had a Sterling submachine, and they're like, okay, this has a cool look to it. What do we do? And put the fins on it, make it look like it has some kind of optic, which is crazy because back in the 70s, optic, there wasn't, you had long range scopes, but nowadays everything has an optic on it. But they put an optic on it. They also put an optic on the Han Solo gun.
That's awesome. Wow, that's really cool.
But to me, this is just, like I said, a celebration of, freedom in American culture. Because if this movie had been made in like France, I don't know what bottles of wine being thrown at each other. Who knows? But in America, we have Sterling submachine guns, Mauser broom handles that shoot laser beams. So this will be in the museum. And if you want to come to see the Freedom Museum when it opens, the pop culture section, we have both of these firearms on display.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Jamin, thanks for coming on. This is our first episode of Opening the Archives to show you guys some of the culture and the history that is going to be in the museum. Again, if you guys like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe, drop us a like, let us know what else you guys want to see. Thanks again.